Good morning, everyone. This is Neil. I'm going to show you today calculating driving routes. This is the August session of Dr. Spotfire. Just a quick note on our motto: learning is driven by is not driven by answers, but by questions. So the more you want to learn about your data, the more questions you want to answer, the more it will drive your learning and your skills building. Today, I'm broadcasting from Seattle, our Dr. Spotfire lab location. And I wanted to give you guys a quick reminder about TIBCO Now in London, September 25th through 26th. There is our last TIBCO Now session conference this year. So make sure you register. There's some hands-on labs. There's lots of great keynote speakers, great interactivity at the booths. I also want to mention that my colleague, Andrew Berridge, will be there. And Andrew is a total genius in Spotfire. If you're going to the conference and you have Spotfire questions, you want to learn some cool things with Spotfire, be sure to look for Andrew. He just put out a book, TIBCO Spotfire Comprehensive Primer. You can get on Amazon. I think it's a pretty cool book. I've been using Spotfire for a few years, and it goes through the basics in the beginning, but then there's some really cool tricks and advanced things throughout it that even I didn't know existed. So recommend this book and recommend reaching out to Andrew. On the topic of TIBCO Now, I was in Chicago for our US TIBCO Now conference, and there were a lot of questions on doing driving routes in Spotfire, how to calculate driving routes. So I'm going to present on that today. If you guys have questions, you can ask them in the chat or the Q&A of the Zoom meeting, and I'll try to get to those questions towards the end. I also have my colleague Ninad Sawe on the webinar session, and he'll be helping by answering some questions in the chat. Okay, so with that, let's see. All right. So what are we going to do today? Let me get this up. All right. So there were, let's see. So there were a lot of questions about doing routing in Spotfire, and we have what's called a TIBCO Geo Analytics Builder. It's a REST API service. And I'm going to explain that in a second, but ultimately what I'm going to show you is how to build this type of dashboard and analysis, where essentially you can have this is Seattle. This is actually where our office is in Seattle. There's a start location. So you can have a start location and you can choose an end location. I'll just copy these map coordinates with a right click, and I'm going to paste it in here. And I'm going to hit calculate. And what this is going to do is calculate driving directions to that new point. It's giving me turn-by-turn directions, the amount of time it's going to take for each step. I can cycle through this and see how the point up here in the top right, how it moves through the route. I can change things like travel mode, if you want to avoid highways and tolls, things like that. And I even included something where I could click here and I can see a Google Maps street view if I wanted. Now, there's a couple parts of this that I'm not going to show today because I've already put them out on YouTube as some Dr. Spotfire quick tip videos. One is using the Google Maps part, the Google Street View part, and the other is using things like satellite imagery and changing the layers that you'll show on the dashboard. It's going a little slow. I'm not sure why that's going slow. But check out those videos if you want to see how the different layers work. And yeah, here we go. So how you can change different layers. This is like a street view layer that gets really detailed. And there's also a satellite layer, which is going a little bit slower. There it is now. So there's a satellite layer as well. So check out the videos again on YouTube if you want to see how that's done. So before I go any further, let's talk a little bit about APIs. So if you guys aren't familiar, a kind of simple analogy is if you're at a restaurant and you're a customer and you make an order, you have a menu of things that you would order from, and you send that through like a waiter, and they're going to take that to the kitchen, and that meal is going to get prepared, and what comes back to you is your food, is your meal. So it's kind of working pretty similar with API services. So the API, so from Spotfire or any other application, you can generate a request, and that request is going to have different options that you can consider like your menu of food items, and you select which things you want off the menu. You kind of bundle that all up into a URL, and you send it to an API service. And that's going to come back as like, well, the Geo Analytics Builder is going to send it back as either a JSON or XML format, and then we're going to consume that in Spotfire. So these are two separate products. Spotfire, we're going to use as our front end, but you can use any other application. And then for the REST API service, we're going to use the TIBCO Geo Analytics Builder, but you can also use this method with other API services that are out there if you'd like. So you don't have to use it just with the TIBCO Geo Analytics. So the TIBCO Geo Analytics Builder is a separate product. So there is a license that you'll have to purchase with it. However, I was able to talk with the product team and get everyone that's attending the webinar a free trial to the Analytics Builder. So if you guys want to try any of the stuff you see out, if you want to try it out for yourself today, you guys can use this API key. Let me copy that over for you. So this is the API key. API keys are often generated with weird characters in them. And so in order to make that URL friendly, there's a de-encode method. You can find at this link, and it'll essentially give you this. So to make things simple, we're just going to use this text in red. And I'm going to put this into the chat right now. So 1 second. Okay. So oops, I sent that to the panelists. Let me send it to the attendees. API trial key. Okay, there you go. So you should be able to copy and paste that. It should work for you for 30 days, so about this time in September. Now, let's see. Okay, so next thing is let's look at this Geo Analytics Builder. Now we're going to go into how we're building this. So the Geo Analytics Builder has a lot of different features in it. There's geocoding, so like if you have an address like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, like where the White House is, and you have an address and you don't have any latitude and longitudes, you can send the address into this REST API service and it'll give you the latitude and longitude back. Same thing, if you have lat and long, you can send that into the geocoder and it'll send you the name of the location of something that's back. There's distance matrices, so if you want to do like routes from one point to many routes, or many points to many other points, you can do that as well. So kind of a quick example of that, and here is where I have these distribution centers, and I want to select some points. Over here on the right, you're seeing those points pop up. Those are my selected distribution centers, and let's say they want to deliver to some set of these blue locations. I can select that, and these are the driving routes from each distribution center to each delivery point. So you can dynamically do this type of stuff in Spotfire, and the Geo Analytics Builder will allow you to do that with a distance matrix, many to many, one to many. And then trade area is another feature where, so I'll show you a trade area example here. A trade area is essentially like how far you can drive from a central point at a given distance. So like 2 miles, this is shown at 2 miles. So if you're starting from the center point, this is how much distance you could cover if you're traveling 2 miles and using the roads. So depending on the roads and the geography, you wouldn't be able to cover a perfect circle. It would really depend on how the roads are oriented, and this boundary is determined by that. And you can do it by driving or walking distance. You can change it if you want 2 miles, 3 miles, or whatever distance buffer you'd like. And what this is shown is in the background, we have some population, some census data. And if I want to find an intersection between this geometry and these green areas, so Berkeley is green right there, you got Oakland, you have these different cities, I can filter my census information in the background, and this is giving me the intersection. So I can see, you know, income above $150,000 and college years above 3.42. These are the populations across each of those cities, median income, things like that. So it's an intersection of two different polygons. And if you want to try any of these things out for yourself, go to the interactive demo gallery. I'll again put this link in the chat. You can try the trade areas one. You can try the delivery routing one. We're going to get the routing, the turn-by-turn directions one up there soon, but that one's not up yet. So let me put this link in the chat as well. All right. So let's go back to, so that's what you can do with this REST API service. So let's look at the itinerary one that we're going to focus on today. So this actually has a demo that you can do right into the browser. So what you see here, these are the parameters. This is kind of like your menu of food, your food menu, with the things you could potentially order. And you don't have to use all the parameters, but a few of them are going to be required. So this it'll say it's mandatory for start and end. But then these are just optional parameters, and they have like a default value. So it's essentially going to generate this URL. And this URL, so right now there's a start and end location here. And I can choose if I want the output to be an XML or JSON. So I'm going to use JSON, and I'm going to hit send request. And what this demo did is just showed in Paris from a start point to an end point, that route. And if I wanted to add, for instance, you know, a unit system here, I can hit add, and then I can type in, let's say, Imperial. These are my options here in red of what I can use. So I'll use Imperial, and I'll send that request, and it'll do the same distance, but the values are going to be then in Imperial. So this is the data represented in the map, but this is the JSON data that was sent back. And I'm going to show you how to take this information and use it in Spotfire. So there's lots of information here. So all of this stuff, like these turn-by-turn directions, it's all kind of nested in this structure. And since I put Imperial, I'm seeing this in miles. I see the time, all this information, but I need to get this into like a data table format that I can use in Spotfire. So finishing up on talking about the URL construction, there is this Maporama key, and there's this value here. Now that value is the API key that I just put in the chat for you. So this is just the demo key that's only going to work really with this website, but you just copy and paste the demo API key when you're running this. So let's take a look at this. The way we're going to do this is actually going to be through R. We're going to use an R data function through tear, and we're going to use a JSON light package, and we're going to construct this URL, and then we're going to parse it out into these tables and then consume it in Spotfire. So, all right, where am I showing next? Okay, so for a very simple example, so library JSON Lite, you want to install that package. If you don't know how to install packages in Spotfire or in R, it's install that packages, and then you would type in JSON Lite. To do that in Spotfire, just real quickly, you go to Tools, Tear Tools, Package Management, you load a repository, and then you just look for JSON Lite and hit install. Okay, so you need that package. Now I've taken just a huge URL here with 2 different points. This is coming from 2 different points. This is actually the Paris one. I copy and pasted this Paris example before the session. So I just want to show you what this is going to look like. First thing I'm going to do is take that URL string. I'm going to write it to an object, my URL, and then I'm going to use the from JSON function, which is part of this package. And I'm going to use a my URL object, and I'm going to say flatten equals true, and that's going to create route data. And then we'll take a look at route data. So I'm going to run this. So that just ran real quickly. It just went out to the internet, to the REST API service, pulled back some data. It created route data, and now I'm viewing route data. So this is what the structure looks like. So I have, this is a list structure, and we have these lists here, these lists within the list of the polyline, segments, and summary. So polyline is going to be latitude and longitude points all along your route. And you can't really see it here. I'll show you how to get it out of this list format. The other object it's sending back is the segments. So this is a turn-by-turn directions. I see the name of that segment, the segment number, the sentence where it says like the directions at the roundabout, take the third exit, distances, things like that. And then it gives me also just a summary thing, like the distances and the time. And that's just a quick summary of some simple values. So I need to be able to use this. I need to put this into a data frame so I can use it in R and Spotfire as a data table. So I'm going to go over this script with you. This is a way I've kind of broken this out. At the beginning here, we're going to do this in Spotfire as document properties, but just for debugging our R script, I've hard-coded it here. So I've taken a route, start, and end. Let's see here if I can. I'll just grab like map coordinates here. So again, I right-click and I copy, and that's going to be a string. So I want to be able to take that string and parse that out. So let's do like the start. I'll paste that. So it adjusted that string, and so that's the route start, the route end. These are the other parameters that we saw in the web page when we were looking at the demo. So when we were looking at these different parameters. So I've created variables for these on things that I want to use. So the travel mode is vehicle. So I want driving directions. You can also do walking directions. The travel mode would be pedestrian in that case. The unit system is imperial. I don't want it to avoid tolls. I don't want it to avoid highway. So I've set these variables. Now the API key, this is the API key that I just gave you guys in the chat. So I've set the API key as a variable. So I've kind of set all these parameters. Now I need to parse some of this information out. So to parse the start and end coordinates into separate numeric Latin longs, I'm going to create a route start object, vector, and I'm going to take route start here, and I'm going to split the string based on the comma space. So then I'm going to get this route.start vector. I'm going to do the same thing for end. And then I want to take, so route.start, let's take a look at what this looks like. Let me just run this part. And so route.start. All right, so you have this vector here with these two different strings, right? So you want to be able to separate these out. So I'm going to cast these each as a numeric, and I'm going to round it to just 6 decimal places. And I'm going to make that the last start and long start. So I'll do that with route.start. I'll cast that, and I'm going to do the same thing with the Latin long ending points. All right, so next I want to construct my URL. Let's put this all together. So kind of a concatenate function in R is paste, and that will concatenate different things and put a space between them, or you can use space, or you can use paste 0, and that will concatenate everything and not put a space between them. So the base URL is, this is never going to change, is going to be this Geo Web Service Maporama. And so I'm going to just keep that as a base. Now, when I go to my example, each of these parameters, they start with kind of this kind of question mark, and then like the key and the equals, and then this one says like and start, and sorry, that one doesn't start a question mark. It starts with Maporama key and it says equals. This one says start and equals. This one says and end and equals, and that's how I'm setting my different parameters in the URL. So I want to create, I want to write these values all in there, right? So what I'm pasting together is this base URL, the mappanoramic key, then my API key, my start location, semicolon, so my longitude start, semicolon, my lat location that I just parsed out here. Same thing for the end. I have my travel mode, so unit system, all this stuff. So I've basically just broken this out in a way that's easy for me to change later, and it's just going to construct my URL. So now when I run this, now I have this route data object. Let's view that real quick. And again, I have this list structure. And this is now using all the locations that I just used in my new R script. So this is all the Seattle stuff with the Seattle Latin longs. This is Wallingford Avenue, a major street in Seattle. And so that's all been brought in from here. And now I need to break it out into 3 data frames. So I created something called my lines. This is just going to be each point along the route. I'm going to take the route data object, and I'm going to do, I'm going to use this $, and I'm going to take the polyline list. So here, there's polyline. So I'm going to grab that, and I just want the latitude and longitude. I'm doing the same thing for the segments and the summary and breaking those out. And let me hide this for now because I don't want to confuse you. Let's do it step by step. Yeah, let me hide this as well. Okay. So I broke all that out, and then I'm going to review each of these. So let's run the whole thing and take a view at it. Okay. So this is going to create these 3 data tables, data frames. So latitude and longitude, my segments, and my summary. Now, one thing to note is that if you're using different units, these labels change. So mile label will be kilometer label if you're using imperial, and distance will be in kilometers, or meters if you're using metric, and this will be in kilometers if you're using metric. So you want to create some consistent labels so that the Spotfire dashboard always knows which columns to look at. So I created some code here that will just always give it the same label, distance label, distance label here. And I did that on my segments and my summary. And the other thing is I made a extra little thing here to change the travel mode. If it's vehicle, make it driving, and then make it say walking. And that's going to be another document property for my dashboard. So let's go back in here, and I'm going to go to data, and let's create some document properties. What you want to do with these document properties is for each of those parameters, route start, route end, mode, all that stuff, create each of these as a string. And we're going to use this in our R script. So you have each of these document properties for your parameters. And in this text area, you can create property controls. So a property control is right here. You can create labels, input fields, sliders, drop downs, all kinds of stuff. So this is an input field, and you select which document property you want to match to. So after you create the route start document property, you can select it here and then hit OK. And what that means is whatever you put in this input field will be written to the document properties. It'll be written to right there. So if I change this, copy map coordinates, and I put that in here, that's now in my document properties value. If I change, these are, I'm saying as a dropdown. So for a dropdown list, you select dropdown here, and you can do fixed values. So it'll display driving and walking, but the value that the API needs is vehicle or pedestrian. So I've set those. And you can then change driving or walking. And so if I change that to walking, I go File, Document Properties, that'll say pedestrian now for mode. That's all tied to mode. So that's how you set up your parameters. And then when I hit Calculate, it's run a data function. So to set up the data function, you go to Data Function Properties, and you're going to pretty much just bring in this whole script that we did in R, except you're not going to bring in this top part, because this we're going to assign through document properties. So from this point down to this point, you also don't need to view it. So between these two lines, you're going to bring this code in, or something similar. And when you bring it in, so you have just the same code, everything should be fine, but you need to set up your input parameters. So you'll set this up, you'll have route start, and that will be your document properties. So you'll add each of these as a string. So you can name your document property, or you can name your input parameter, and then you'll say a value. And you'll do that for each of these. And then output, we're going to do 3 different tables, and then the travel mode. If you want to do the travel mode at the bottom that we talked about, you can also do that. But mainly you want to get these 3 different tables. And then when you set up your parameters, you want to assign each of these to a document property. So route end, it'll start like this. So you go to document property and route end, you'll select route end here. And that makes sure that whatever is in here is going to get passed into your data function. And then the output are going to be these tables. So I have a table, my summary, my lines, and my segments. And so when I hit calculate, if you remember, I moved the point to like somewhere here. Yeah. So now it just calculated, and it's generating these 3 data tables: my segments, my summary, and my lines. So from there, it's, I think, pretty simple. If you have the Spotfire, like if you know how to create maps in Spotfire, you'll go, you'll create a map. I'll kind of do a quick walkthrough. You create a map chart. You'll go to properties. You go to layers. You'll add as a marker layer, you can add my lines. Let's actually turn off the other one. So we'll add like my line. Oh wait, I already added that. Sorry, my lines. Edit it twice. Okay, so you add my lines. You can format this, so appearance. Let's say size. Let's take this down a little bit. And then you can do a drawing order, and you want to draw it by the row number, so it's sequential. And why that matters is when you do a line connection, you can do a line connection in here. Sorry. When you do a line connection, let's see, row count. Oops. How do I have this set up? Sorry, I can't remember how this set up. But it'll draw the line in that order. Draw a separate line. There we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So there we go. You'll be able to get like kind of this arrow kind of coming in here. So actually can't remember my settings. Let me take a quick look at this. Settings, routes, line connection. Yeah. So subsets, and then you don't need to do an order, and then it'll draw from point to point, and it'll draw this arrow in there. If you want to create these arrows, show you that real quickly. It's just a calculated column. So data, column properties, this is in segments. And if you go down to, I created this column indicator. And so all of these start with like follow, turn right, turn left, follow. And then there's also, sometimes it'll say exit. So I used a find in there. So if it starts with turn left, turn right, or follow, then I said assign an L, R, F, or E. So that data then looks like F, R, L, F, all that stuff. So that's for follow, left or right. And then this is just a graphical table visualization. And I added a turn icon. And in the icons, I have these colors. So if it's, equal to E. If that indicator is equal to E, it'll be gray. It's equal to RL, it's blue. F, it's green. And you can also change the shape of these as well. So I changed the shape to like the left and right arrows. And that's pretty much about it. So you can, I think from there, you can figure out how to piece this stuff together. Again, you can use these APIs with more than just Geo Analytics Builder. You can use it for all kinds of API services. The method of parsing that stuff out is called normalization of those JSONs. And that can get a little tricky, but there's a lot of online resources on how to do it. But you want to ultimately flatten it out into a structure of data tables that you can use in Spotfire. And you can use it, again, with multiple APIs, or you can use Spotfire with multiple APIs this way, or you can use a Geo Analytics Builder with other front-end products and not just Spotfire. Now, lastly, just let's close out for today. I didn't see any questions in the chat. I think that I got to most of those. So just remember, you can ask questions on the community. You can use hashtag Dr. Spotfire, and we'll take a look at it. One thing I wanted to point out to you guys today is that we have started some more user groups online. The main one is LinkedIn. It's a Spotfire Customer Success Center, and it's very active. This is more official, done by TIBCO. And there's some other less official social media channels. If you prefer Facebook or Reddit, there's a Spotfire subreddit and a Facebook user group as well that just started. Let me go ahead. I'll go ahead and put those links in the chat for you at the end here. Also wanted to point out on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. What we've started to do is the Q&As, rather than do them at the end of the Dr. Spotfire session, we're doing quick tip videos, and we're putting out 1 to 2 of these a week. And I'll go through and explain how to do a quick tip. I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to start pulling questions off the community and answering user questions with Dr. Spotfire quick tip video. So this is a more bite-sized way to get your information. The sessions are recorded, so when you subscribe, you'll get this Dr. Spotfire feature session. You can also watch today's session on the on-demand page for a month, and then it'll get moved over to YouTube. So let me give you guys those links I just mentioned. I'm going to put that in chat. And let me also just put it on the page real quick for the people that are watching the recording. These are the links that you want. Okay, everyone, that's it for today. Oh, I got a couple questions here. Let me see. Someone asked, can I export or share my route into different devices, phone or Garmin for navigation? I'm not sure what type of device you have. If your device can connect to a REST API service, then yes, absolutely, you should be able to use this. You should also be able to use a lot of this with the mobile version of Spotfire, the Spotfire app. So they'll just kind of depend on your device. And then someone else asked, can you please share the Spotfire file? So again, on the interactive demo gallery, we're going to try to put this on the public demo gallery, and you should be able to download the file from there. So, all right, I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll catch you next time.